Hello and welcome to another episode of Mysteries with a History, where we'll be taking on a wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. And with each episode together, we will peel away the layers to look for the truth. It's been a very eventful week. We have a lot to cover today, so let's just get straight into it. Let's bring in my co-host, Jimmy Church of FADETOBLACKRadio. Jimmy. It's been wild, hasn't it?
It's been a wild week. It's been a wild week there, Cristina, and I'm glad we're doing this show today. I'm doing another one tonight on Fade to Black, of course. I'm going to hand this straight back over to you. But I do want to say this to your audience and those that are here. You know, this is your fan base that I'm invading every day. But I want to just announce to everybody that my show is booked a month in advance. Usually, I mean, at least 2 weeks, but about a month in advance. And I say it all the time, you never know what the breaking news is going to be, right? And, you know, of course, on Monday, this stuff broke. I have a week of shows that is booked. I've got producers that work for me and handle stuff. And now I've got to cover this. And out of respect to not only the hard work that the producers and my staff does on Fade to Black, and I've got a pretty large staff. You just don't turn around and cancel a guest. And some people will do that. That's okay. I can't and won't do that. And it was very difficult. And so today, it just so happens that the guest that was booked for tonight had a family thing and had to cancel and reschedule for the future. But that opened up tonight. And who do I immediately, I got on the phone and called John Greenwald, who has been covering this top to bottom and front to back, and got him for the show tonight. And I'm very thankful for that. But I just want the audience to know how this world works in media and stuff. I just can't cancel. You know, I realize everybody wants me to cover this, but just it's the prudent, fresh thing to do is to have morals and ethics, right? And I'm just not going to cancel on a guest, right? So there you go. But today we are both able to cover it. We're going to do it here, and then we're going to do it later on Fade to Black. So I'm
for the whole week. This event needs to be a week long. And Susie took the words right out of my mouth. What a time to be alive. And we're going to get into that because truly, in my opinion, the year 2023 has been significant when it comes to the UFO conversation. And this just added some nice little sprinkles to our beautiful cake that we're creating that has that nice cream cheese frosting. Okay. And it's only becoming more extravagant as the months progress.
Yes. And I'm going to hand this back to you. What did you think when the news broke? I've got to grab this call.
Yeah, go for it. And Pink, thank you so much. Hey, y'all, finally caught a live stream. Thank you for coming by. That's so exciting. So when it comes to David Grusch, okay, he was a former intelligence official turned whistleblower who has stated that the government possesses intact and partially intact vehicles of non-human origin. He's one of several key whistleblowers in recent years that has added an incredible story that first popularized by Bob Lazar, who came forward as a whistleblower back in 1989. And we have this new person with pretty extensive credentials coming forward, having an amazing article written by The Debrief, doing an interview on NewsNation with Ross Coulthart, and it's just blowing up across the United States, and it's even getting international coverage as well. But there's a lot of people that have very, very mixed feelings about this, and I don't disagree, nor do I agree with this. I'm an observer here. I'm not a believer in what he's saying or what he's not saying. What I'm looking at is how the story is unfolding, and hopefully he will be able to provide more information, because he did mention in the debrief article that was written by Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal that these were all secondhand accounts. People were telling him stories. People were providing him evidence and documents, but we don't have access to any of those things because those are classified for the time being. However, as Jimmy says, there are a few tidbits that are worth mentioning. The first thing, and we're going to go into great detail on this, but something that I would like to touch on is that before he was even able to come forward, David was even able to come forward and tell his experiences that he's had, the background that he has, and the people that he's spoken to. He had to get it cleared by the Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review. But what does that actually mean? Just because Dopser said, yeah, you're able to release this information, it is not fact checking the information. That's not what they do. What they're merely looking for is if any classified information is being publicized, because they do not want that. And from the information that David had provided, none of it's classified. But again, they're not saying what David is saying is true. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for if he's breaching any NDAs.
Yes, and now, and to add to that, that was excellent, by the way. To add that, one of the let's get straight to it. I mean, let's get to the meat of the matter here. So many want, okay, where's the evidence? Okay, well, wait a minute. That's not what this is about. I've seen the arguments about, oh, well, what about the isotropic measurements of the metallic materials of the craft, and where's the laboratory? It's not about that. That doesn't matter. That is not what is going on here. What is going on is he has told the IG, he has told Congress, he has exposed this as a government employee and former director of the UAP task force, this information, and has said, okay, this is what's going on. He has now handed it off. The door is open. The worms are out of the can, right? Here we go. And now let's find out what's going on. That is the case. There's nothing else here. The two questions that need to be answered, there's only two, Cristina. Where's the craft? Where are the bodies? There isn't. Don't worry about paperwork. Don't worry about evidence. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about the testing that was going on, or the metamaterials, or is he telling the truth? Is he not? Is he lying? Is he making it up? What about his background? What about that? He went to the IG. He swore. He signed off on this, and he said, "This is the case. Here you go. Here's the information." Now, two questions. Where's the flying saucers? Where's the alien bodies? That's it. There's nothing else to discuss here, and it is a huge moment. I mean, for somebody like this, where the UFO community, I don't want to talk about other, so-called whistleblowers or very courageous people in the past. That's a different story. This is the first time, period, where a government official like this has come forward and said these things. It's never happened before. So we have to take most of this at face value. There is very serious repercussions for lying and for making this up and going to the IG and filing complaints that are lies. No, there's just way too much on the line here for him personally. Yeah. So that's where it's at. So, two questions, just two. I don't care about the metamaterials. I don't care about anything.
We want the goods. That's
the
pretty much what Jimmy is saying here.
flying saucers, bodies.
I'm in.
Now, and so what do you think about? Is there with all of the uproar that is going on right now, and the arguments going back and forth? It's to me, it's all moot. They're all moot points, and they're all moot questions, which includes somebody like Mick West, who I have respect for Mick. I do. But Mick is a professional debater, right? And you watch what he does and watch what he says online. No matter what you say, he's going to counter you with a question to continue the debate. That's it. That's what Mick. That's so Mick is trying to deflect and doing a very good job. And go, well, what about the isotope? What about the laboratory? What about what about? And he's just getting people to respond, right? And feeding him. That's just what he does. He does it for sport, and people buy into it. Those aren't the questions that need to be asked. Somebody like Mick or anybody else, Cristina, you just back up and go, okay, so David gave us the goods. He did. Who's got the alien craft and where are the bodies? That's it. That's the focus. There's nothing else to discuss. I don't even care where they come from or what food they eat, what kind of shoes they wear. I don't care about their DNA. I don't care what their craft is made of. I don't care. Flying saucers, alien bodies.
And what he did is really elevating the conversation. People are asking questions. I mean, everyone is covering this, and they should. I don't care if there's 1,000 shows covering this. It needs to be covered by everyone because that particular audience is going to touch a new pair of ears that hasn't heard the story. So I don't care that people are saying, oh, everyone's talking about this. We need to and more because we are filling in the gap where the media falls short. And Android, I want to answer this. Thoughts on the big news networks not covering it? And thank you so much for that super chat, by the way, as well.
Yes and no answer. Put that back up for a second. Can you put that back up?
Yeah.
Okay, that's from Android Paranormal. Thank you for that, Android. Thank you for the $2. That's a lot of ramen these days, by the way. And I did ramen before the show. My tradition was met. That's a yes and no answer here. Okay, so
I mean, the Washington Post is probably regretting not taking that article.
Yeah,
so Kean and Bluementhal walked to the debrief and they're like, hey, we need to publish this. We need to get it done now. I have the Twitter post that Bluementhal had mentioned that they were under pressure to get it sent. Right. And I bet the Washington Post is like...
Pressure from who?
Right.
Pressure for who is giving them pressure? But Fox News has covered the story. Huffington Post has covered the story. Desert News has covered the story. The BBC now has covered the story. I complained about the BBC last night on the air. Right after that, last night, the BBC ended up covering the story. Who hasn't covered the story? Well, you have the New York Times, Los Angeles Times. CNN has not jumped in. MSNBC did cover it today. Okay, so some of the big outlets, though, are a little slow to respond, and I get that. Listen, there are reasons for that. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have already covered it. They should have. But, Cristina, I do the news every day. And Renee Newman, who has been with me for almost 10 years, okay, and she is, she's just amazing with the news. And so every day I get a collection of stories from Renee, and she's probably in the chat. Renee, you are the absolute very best. Thank you, young lady. Is this, I cover her stories that she sends me. She is so good that I'll do the news, both when I did it on Fade to Black and now I do, the news as a separate broadcast every single day. I'll see it on CNN 3 days later. I'll see it on Fox 4 days later. Right. So it's not, I am on top of this. And Renee is so good at what she does. She's getting me these stories. When you hear stuff on Fade to Black, and I know people do it, I know because I get the emails. People will listen to me do the breaking news and then turn around and read about it in the mainstream media 3 or 4 days later and go, Church, you were talking about this 3 days ago. Why the delay? Well, it's just part of the process. But here we are on Thursday now. Okay.
It's really, really making the news because
Well,
it's a
no,
fascinating topic, Jimmy.
But it's time for the New York Times to get on this. It's time for CNN to get it. Nobody likes to get scooped. And I know CNN and everybody else got scooped by the debrief and News Nation. But Fox has stepped up, BBC has stepped up, Huffington Post has stepped up.
Because they're seeing the interest, they're seeing the amount of views. I mean, that's really what it's all about. It's the view count. So more people are jumping on this, and they definitely should. But when it comes to the alien bodies, the craft, but also everything in between, their DNA, the rest of their biology, where they come from, a lot of people do care about this, and we have to remember that there are many with diverse perspectives and requirements for investing time and belief into this. But as to what you said earlier about, who cares about this, I think it's a lot more people than what they would like to admit or what we would consider or even expect either. But I think everyone deep down has an interest when it comes to extraterrestrial life. Even if it's microbial life, you know what? I'll buy it. That's fine. But all of us have this interest. All of us have this curiosity on what's beyond our planet. And this will be world changing if true. If what David Grusch has mentioned in the interview and in the article as well, if it is true, it will be world changing. But of course, we all want the documents, we all want the evidence, but he is providing a foundation for more people to come forward to use that whistleblower document protection. Thank you for that, because people haven't really been using it. It was published from 2021 to 2022, and people are kind of like they're on the fence. They're kind of like on a surfboard, kind of leaning back and forth.
Somebody's got to be first, right?
Right. And Grusch is that guinea pig. But he's been sitting on this since April. He had to send over his, I would classify it as almost a public report. He had to send that over to Dopser. And he's been sitting on it since then. And it makes me question, how long has Leslie Kean and Ralph Bluementhal been sitting on it? When exactly was the interview with Ross Coulthart, right? How long did he even know about this information? You get what I'm saying? But here's the crazy thing, Jimmy. This is fitting so perfectly in a perfect little puzzle piece for the year of 2023. We've been getting a lot of information when it comes to UFO quote disclosure, right? It's becoming a lot more mainstream than what it was even 3 years ago. And so for someone to come forward at this exact point in time, and this news didn't come out on a Sunday afternoon, right? Like what we've seen in the past, it came on a hot day in the sense of like the news outlet, not like on an actual hot day, unless it was like hot on your side of the world. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is people are getting their eyes on this story. And then, yes, everyone has their own ideas and their opinions, and you can't do anything about that. But the 2023 UFO roller coaster ride so far has been Senator Kate Gillibrand and the Aero UAP budget hearing. You had Dr. Gary Nolan at the SALT conference. You had the NASA public UFO meeting. You had the Chris Mellon UFO article. And then now you have David Grusch and his UFO whistleblowing and his IG complaint as well. And we're only halfway through the year and we're getting some pretty significant stuff. But of course, you're still going to hear people complain and saying, we're not getting the goods. We're not getting anything here. But if you were to have this conversation 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this is a godsend.
You know who I feel bad for? You know who the big loser is?
Washington Post.
Tucker Carlson.
What?
Tucker Carlson. Poor Tucker, right? Been covering this, since 2017. Number one nightly news program in the world. Number one, Tucker Carlson. Number one, sitting at the top of the heap, and covering every aspect of this, fully engaged. Now, I'm not saying I'm a Tucker fan. Far from it, right? But he was there. He was leading the charge. And poor Tucker, unemployed, had to do his announcement on Twitter.
But even so,
wait, let me finish, Cristina. I know this is your show, but let me finish. Tucker had to bring up all of those valid points that needed to be heard. And one of them was this is the biggest story in human history. It's number one. There isn't a bigger story. This is number one. Where is the New York Times? Where is that? Where? This should be. Instead, you're going to go to any of the websites and read about climate change, right? You're going to read about it. But the biggest story in human history isn't being covered this week. And that's and Tucker, it would have been his lead story on Monday night. Everybody would have followed. And Tucker had to do it on Twitter.
Okay, but I know that he covered 2 news items in the first show of his stuff on Twitter, and it has almost 100 million views. That's a lot of exposure. Mm-hmm. There may be even more so than what he would have received from Fox. So regardless on the platform that he's on, he's one of just a handful of people that has taken this conversation very seriously. And I don't care about people's political party here. I don't watch his stuff unless it has to do with UFOs. But what I'm getting at is he covered a 10-minute segment of Ukraine and then of this UFO story, and it had 100 million views on Twitter alone.
I saw that.
Those are amazing stats.
It is. But if they offered Tucker his job back, he'd take it. Okay, so don't say that Twitter and 100 million, the exposure. No, it's not the same thing. And all I am suggesting here is that he was number one for so many years, and in that position, he chose to be a flag waver and lead the charge for the UFO community. He did that. And then the biggest news, like he said, in the history of mankind breaks, and he's got to talk about it on Twitter. I just feel bad for the guy. He, I do. I got a little empathy for Tucker Carlson. Does he still wear a bow tie?
I am not sure, but Brian, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you're enjoying the channel, and thank you for the super chat. Eric as well, and 1776. It's an interesting year. Have to give credit to Stanton Freeman for first. Interesting point. We're going to touch on that actually a little bit.
Right there. Look, got my Roswell shirt.
Yeah, he's wearing his Roswell shirt. There you go. And April, thank you so much as well. You hear about the aliens and ship scene in Vegas. This was a recent one, right? I didn't come across too much information on that, but I did read basics.
I watched the video. A family says a UFO crashed in their backyard. Now, this happened back in April, by the way. It was like April 20th.
Which, it's not really that long ago. And Android, thank you so much. He says, Ralph confirmed on Jim Harold's show that the New York Times fully passed. They tried to take it there before the Washington Post. So there were a handful of outlets that could have gotten and received the biggest news of all time, and they brushed it off. And now look, they're probably so devastated, so disappointed because this is getting such amazing coverage. Mm-hmm. But moving on forward, when it comes to this particular article, because there was a lot of information provided in it. It's very long. That link will be in the description box below for those that do want to read it in great depth, because it is a worthy read. But we will be covering some of those things today, such as Dave Grusch's background, his age, He's classified as a decorated former combat officer in Afghanistan. He also worked alongside a few UFO groups as well that were funded by the government. And Terry, thank you so much for that. But what's really interesting, and we touched on this, but I'm going to go ahead and mention that again, is that during his time, because he was a predecessor of, he worked and he was assigned to the UAPTF a while ago. And what he had mentioned was that there was a handful of people that reached out to him to tell him their stories having to do with retrieving UFO craft. Ross Coulthard asked about, do we have the bodies? He asked the $1 million question, Jimmy, that we all wanted to know. And David said yes, that there were a decent amount of bodies and crashed retrievals as well. And when we're listening to this, we think to ourselves, why is he repeating something that we already know, at least in the UFO community? Why is he saying this? Why does it matter? Well, this brings me into the connection with Bob Lazar, who was a whistleblower back in '89. If he didn't mention his work, if he didn't mention Area 51 S4 reverse engineering, we wouldn't have had that information today. And people wouldn't have said in the last few days, oh, we already know that information. We already know the government is collecting UFOs that have crashed. If Bob Lazar didn't come out during that time frame, we wouldn't have that mentality that we do today. So what if in 10, 20 years, another whistleblower comes up, kind of like David Grusch, and that whistleblower says a few things that David had already mentioned? People are going to say, why is this new whistleblower saying that? We've known this for the last decade. And what I'm getting at is these people that are coming forward, regardless on if you believe them or not, right? We don't have a lot of evidence. But these people that are coming forward, they are setting a foundation for people to start asking questions. And that doesn't mean that this information is credible at all. We are still at the anecdotal stages with all of this. We all want the goods. We all want the pictures and the debris and the bodies. But at this point in time, that door is just creaking open. It's opening people's minds. People are asking questions, and they're coming to shows like these to fill in the gaps on where no one else is.
Okay. Yes. Again, I find it hard. Listen, everybody, sometimes it's a little boring when you have a couple of hosts like Cristina and I that just agree with each other. It's best that we fight. It's best that we argue. That's interesting radio. But in this case, I have to agree with Cristina, except you can't compare him to Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar was never a whistleblower, number one. But here's the other thing. Your point is well taken. Why didn't we can give Bob credit for the exposure of Area 51 that we had known about for a while, but the government denied that it was there. And he brings that up. S4, that's a whole other consideration altogether. And I doubt that that's actually a real place. It is on a map. It's S4 on a map, but it's not the S4 that Bob says it is, in my opinion. But that's not the point. The point is the reason why Bob was never taken seriously by the government or anybody else is that his background didn't check out. And once your background doesn't check out, whether it's your education or your employment, or and there's some fabrications and there's some holes, your credibility is not there. In the case with David Grusch, we have his background.
We have his real name.
We have his government records. He's posing with his medals and his decorations and his accommodations. We know that he was the director of the UAP task force, or that was Jay Stratton. But we know that he was a member of the UAP task force, and so we know these things about him. Period. So his credibility, his background, his CV, his resume is not in doubt. That's the difference. Bob Lazar, he's got a credibility issue that, okay, now you brought up Ross Coulthard. let me give you a really good point. Ross Coulthart's interview with David Grusch was amazing. Ross, and I love that guy. He's
Amazing.
a pit bull. He's a pit bull. He does not play around. He does not give a crap if he's offending somebody or offending the audience or asking the wrong questions and he needs to tiptoe. No, Ross wants answers. And when he looked at David straight in the eyeballs and goes, "Man, are you lying to me right now?" Right? That right there shows you what Ross is about. Bob Lazar could not do that interview with Ross Coulthart. Ross would it'd be horrific. But in David's case, his background and his CV and his resume is not in doubt. So Ross is going to approach this a bit differently. And know that he doesn't have to go into his background. He's got the background. He can vet his background. With somebody like Bob Lazar, you've got issues from the word go. So Ross, being the investigative journalist that he is, I have so much respect for Coulthart. I've spoken to him many times, and when I grow up, hopefully I'll be as good as Ross. I would love to be Ross, but Bob Lazar couldn't stand up under that kind of scrutiny. So I don't want to confuse the two or compare the two. I'll give Bob credit where credit is due. He may have helped put Area 51 on the map, but that's where it stops.
But it's also a conversation starter, though, Jimmy. I mean, what I'm saying is that we have to look at the things he said. We have to take it into consideration where these allegations are concerned, right? After all, we are trying to sort out the wheat from the chaff with the information that's out there and has been for many years. So I have to say a big thank you to Lue Elizondo and Senator Gillibrand, Chris Mellon, and there are many unknown names that push through HR 2988, right? That and have laid the foundation for all of what we're seeing now. And Lue Elizondo is a whistleblower as well, one that has taken action based on what he's seen and learned, but has not been able to at least share publicly. And he is working to create an environment that will allow him and others to talk about what they know. But this Protection Act, HR 2988, is a great start. And as we had mentioned, Jimmy, David Grusch was the first person to really take on that protection and to move forward with the conversation that we are talking about today. And also, Chicho, thank you so much for the RV fund. Christina's Disclosure Tour 2023. Heck yeah. Thank you so much for that. And Monica, Jimmy, and Christina, you both rock and you rule. Thank you, Monica. And James as well. Thank you. I stopped watching. Well, thank you so much for that.
Leave it up.
Okay.
I stopped watching this. It says Jim. I'm assuming he means me, Jimmy, when he said he didn't believe one of the 30 facts about Bob. I can't wait till you're proven wrong. And, look, Bob is one of the most polarizing people out there. And I've said it a million times. I spent 30 years of my life, 3 decades supporting Bob Lazar. Okay, so I'm entitled to change my mind. And so are you. All right, it's really that simple. I'm not going to put Bob Lazar in the category of a David Grusch or a Lue Elizondo. I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not, and I'm entitled to that. So if you don't want to watch the show, that's what's great about this country, isn't it? You can not only change the channel, but you can change your mind. And I've changed mine. So moving on with David, what did you think about, Cristina? I think it's probably the most important point with all of this. He said, well, if you got craft, you kind of think you need pilots. right? And when he said that to Ross, of course, that's on the front of everybody's mind, right? That's exactly what, okay, so then there must be bodies as well. And he straight up, I was looking at his body language, right? I'm trying to figure this guy out, and I'm watching his face. I'm like, he's kind of selling me on this. He's kind of, I'm buying what David is selling here. It's a strange situation. What do you think? Do we have alien bodies?
I would love that to be a solid yes, but preferably alive. Thank you very much, and not tortured, please. But aside from that, I think it would that would be the best evidence that could be provided, right? We have a few alleged pictures, a few alleged videos, if that, and people are very hesitant, and especially in today's age in 2023, CGI is such a big thing. Robotics is huge now more than ever. And so even if we were provided an alien body, you would still have so many naysayers saying, nope, that's it. Nope, that's robots. Nope, that's CGI from the video that I'm seeing. And at the same time, in order to have this conversation, especially when it comes to UFOs, right? You need to have both camps, those that believe and those that don't. And that's how this vicious cycle goes around.
Mm-hmm.
Because if everyone just believed it, right, then it would be as if you're almost brainwashed. But if people are asking questions or those that want to engage in debate, it not only opens their minds to the other person's point of view, but
Mm-hmm.
everyone that's listening as well thinks to themselves, I didn't think of that aspect. Now that you mentioned it, I need to think a little bit further before I place my opinion, before I say this is fact when it might not actually be.
Mm-hmm.
And this topic, and you've been in this field for decades, and you've seen it firsthand, I can assume. There's a lot, and I'm saying a lot of misinformation and disinformation, which is another idea when it comes to David Grusch. Is this all just misinformation? Was he lied to by these other people for him to come forward and confuse the public? People are asking these questions as well.
They are. The answer is no, though. Let me
Well,
tell you.
we don't actually know that.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying no. But let me tell you why. Look at the picture that you've got up here. Look at this. Do you think it's possible a top secret agency, Grusch, exposing erased Bob's credentials and MIT education? No, they didn't erase it because he never went there. There's nothing to erase. And the other part, let's talk about Bob Lazar a little more. I want you to leave this picture up of David Grusch. It's very important. The claims, right, that the government can go in and erase your records. Okay, so they took his photo album too. The pictures of him hanging out with his buddies at MIT in the dorm room. They took his notes, right? You take notes in class every day for a few semesters. What, they took those? They took all of his every single thing that tied him to anywhere, eating in the school cafeteria, whatever it is. They erased all of that. Come on. So stop with that. It just stop. Even I have pictures of me in school, just about in every grade. Every grade. Every grade, all the way through, me going to UCLA Extension or me going to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I got pictures. I've got pictures, high school pictures. Here, I've got all that stuff. But they just took one guy and just erased everything in the history of everything and then didn't even put him in prison. Stop with that. But with Grusch, the reason why I say no is that right there. Thank you, Cristina. Why would somebody damage that reputation? Put his life on the line, went out there and stood up for this country and did everything that he did. Why does he throw all of that away? Because if he's lying and he made all of this up, he'll never get another job. He'll be like Bob Lazar. He'll be a photo processor at Photomat. for minimum wage, right? David Grusch's next job, if he's lying, will be this. You want fries with these shakes? And I just don't see this guy lying. I don't. It doesn't fit. So in such a public way, when you do a misinformation or disinformation, right? Misinformation, disinformation, you're doing that behind a pseudonym. You're not using your real name. You're posting stuff on the internet. You've got a website that you're running, right? You don't show your face with the medals in your accommodation and go and say that we have alien bodies. You don't do that. You just don't. So now I'm not backing up everything. I'm saying in this case, he's given us the two things we need to go and find: the flying saucers and the bodies. Now, real quick before I hand it back to you, you mentioned fake videos, right? And the age of the internet, fake photograph, fake hoaxing. Absolutely. So in this case, the United States government needs to open up the doors, bring in the press, open up the hangar doors and go, there it is. All right? There it is. Take all the pictures that you want. There it is. You want to see the bodies? Come over here. They're down this hallway. Okay, let's go down here. They'll pull out a drawer and go, there he is. There she is. There it is. That's anything short of that is not going to be acceptable in the eyes of the public or the media. All right. So those are the two questions. I keep going back. It's very simple. The craft and the bodies. Let's see them. Let's go. Congress now knows. The Senate knows. The IG knows. This may have been spirited away in a special access program and away from the public eye now for a few decades. Maybe they got a craft last week. I don't know. He even talked about a 1933 crash retrieval out of Italy that the United States went over and grabbed this craft and brought it back. He's given specific dates and a location. Now we have a paper trail. And for somebody like John Greenwald, who's going to be on the show tonight, the Freedom of Information Act specialist, has given John a lot of tools to go and look for a few things, right? Well, so I don't know where this is going, Cristina, but I think that June 5th, 2023 is a date that's going to go down in infamy. I think it's a really big deal. Congratulations to the debrief, Leslie Kean, Ralph Bluementhal, and it looks like David Grusch is probably going to have his own coin. He might be on the $20 bill. I don't know, but I think it's a pretty big deal.
Well, don't get me wrong. I didn't bring up Lazar because I believe him. I brought him up because of his allegations are part of the public record. And I especially do a lot of homework and research, as you know. So I've been looking for corroborations from the past that might match what David is saying. This is a big tapestry that we're trying to put together with many pieces and so many players. So to stay on the fence, to stay unbiased, to look into all aspects of the information and even the possible disinformation as well. These are the things that so many of us are looking for and the questions that we also need to ask. We can't simply blindly believe everything that we read or are being told. We need to use that critical thinking, but at the same time, we need to look at our past as well, or at least the past of the UFO phenomenon, to get an understanding of if we're seeing any repeatable patterns today. And in an instance, what David is saying. And Kitten, thank you so much. Can't wait for the show tonight, Jimmy. I'll be there. Heck yeah. And Joseph, thank you so much. Roger, thank you. The bodies are beneath the Denver airport. Dun, dun, dun. And Brian, thank you for that as well. Won't they have time to move everything before an eventual inspection?
Can we leave that up there for a second, Cristina? That's a really good point. There were, from a few different sources this week, 3 out of maybe the 5 that have come forward I know personally, and I've been on the phone with these people. As a matter of fact, that's one of the phone calls that just came in during the show. Is the count seems to be around a dozen. All right. Now, I've heard the number go up to 15. I've heard it go as high as 16, that we have a dozen or so craft, 6 of which are intact, right? That didn't necessarily crash. They just landed. And apparently, I was told, you know what, I'm going to keep me out of this. I'm not part of the story. This is a David Grusch thing. But apparently, some of these craft were abandoned. And, you know, the occupants are out doing their thing, right? Collecting flowers, plants, you know, whatever, you know, doing their thing, mutilating cows, doing whatever they're doing. And then we snuck up and grabbed the craft. That's a pretty interesting thing. So 6 or so are damaged, but 6 or so are not. So when we talk about, oh, they're going to move, they're going to do the chess moves and everything, that's a lot of chess moves, and it's a lot of things to keep quiet and not be discovered. Trust me, my eyes are wide open down the street. The rumor is that next door to my house, that's where they've got the bodies and at least one of the craft. Yeah. Oh, don't think I didn't drive. I don't think I didn't drive down. I did it today. I drove around there today to see if there's any activity and to see if there's any camo dudes. What's this? Jim, is that Salister?
Yeah, James.
Jamie, is it James?
James, thank you so much.
No, James Allister. Got it. See, I you know, there you go. He says, Jim, I love you. We all do. Thank you. I love you too, James. Great name, by the way. Do you believe David Adair's tale? What the short answer is, well, I believe half of it. I believe half of it. He's got all the newspaper articles and the things, and him building rockets and stuff when he was a kid, and he's certainly won his fair share of accommodations for the stuff that he has done. I know Dave. I know Adair. I've hung out with him, and can I just say this in a very nice way? Nobody, and I mean nobody, can tell you a campfire story like David Adair.
That's the way to do it. And 1776 says, Senator Graham and Mark Kelly calling BS on Grusch's story. I figure the knives will come out for him. And he mentioned that in the interview that he did with Ross, saying he's putting his life on the line, he's putting his career on the line.
Yep.
And what he didn't say, but we kind of assume here, is that what he's doing, what he's saying is more valuable than his career and his life, because Jimmy, and I said this earlier, he is setting a foundation. He is allowing more people to come forward, and depending on how people react to him, depending on how people attack him, other whistleblowers are going to follow suit, right? And so he's just kind of there feeling out the waters, but people in general are brutal, especially behind a keyboard with an anonymous name, no face, right? They're just gonna spew out the most negative, terrible things, and this affects people. He also mentioned in the article for the debrief about the levels of harassment that he has received, and it says here, as a result, Grusch suffered months of retaliation related to these disclosures beginning in 2021. He asked that details of these reprisals be withheld to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation. The Intelligence Community Inspector General found his complaint credible and urgent in July of 2022. And according to Grusch, a summary was immediately submitted to the Director of National Intelligence and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And the complaint was drafted and signed by his managing partner, partner, and it ended with Grusch's signature attached to the statement that says, "I do solemnly affirm under the penalties that the contents of the foregoing paper are true and correct to the best of my knowledge." This man is putting everything on the line here. And for those that are listening to this or watching this live, if you're enjoying the show, please hit the like button. Okay, it lets us know that you're enjoying the show, and it also helps the YouTube algorithm as well. We have a lot of people watching this live, and that means that you're interested in the topic that we're covering today. So hit the like button before you continue onward.
400's the number. Quit playing around. Quit playing around. I want to. It needs to be brought out here that in Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal's article, and that, okay, first off, nobody likes to get scooped. All right, no. That includes Senator Graham and astronaut Kelly, right? Nobody likes to get scooped. Nobody likes to find out about something. What are you talking about? Catching them. What are you talking about? And that includes the news organizations, and that includes all of the UFO celebrity types that are out there on social media. Nobody likes to get scooped, right? I would have loved to have had the story in front of the debrief. What are the odds that Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal potentially wrote the two biggest articles in the history of media?
Yeah. First, the one in 2017, and then this one.
This one, nobody likes to get scooped. So when you say the knives come out, right? Oh man! But it appears, now this is the point that I'm making with this, that I think that Leslie and Ralph, again, two pit bulls. You don't want either of them on your scent. You don't. You just don't. You don't. But here's the thing. Oh, I just said it. But here's the thing. They made sure that this time around they had attributable, vetted, corroborating sources in this article. So it wasn't just Grusch.
No, good
right?
point.
It was 2, 3, 4 other sources that added to this. And in Leslie's interview that she did that day, of course, the knives are out, right? Leslie, how can you do that? How can you wait, leave it? And Leslie goes, look, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm not stupid. Right?
She said that without saying that, but yes.
Yeah, that's what she said.
For News Nation.
Yeah. Was it News Nation?
It was News Nation, yeah.
Nation. I'm not an idiot. I've been doing this for a long time. I know. And when I hear this from sources over and over again, I'm going to do my job. And I'm going to write this article. And that's exactly, and if you read through and you read how the debrief laid it out, I think it's done correctly, and I am critical. Cristina, I am critical. I am so quick to read somebody's thing, and I've done it with Leslie, and I've done it with Ralph before, and I've called them out on it, where I've read through and went, "Oh, come on, no." All right, but not in this case. I think that the story was written correctly. I think the sources that needed to be attributed were there. The only question that I do have, and I'll talk more about this tonight with John Greenwald, but I'll bring it up here, is this Jonathan Gray.
I'm glad you brought him up.
Jonathan Gray. So what they've done in the article, I've gone back, and I don't know if it's clever, I don't know if it's a mistake, or if that is just correct. All right, I don't know. Leslie knows, Ralph knows. I'm assuming Tim McMillan knows, and so forth. But at the debrief, Jonathan Gray, they call him a generational military person. In that he comes from a family of people in the military. All right. Well, the quote coming from this Jonathan Gray is gnarly. Grusch is stand-up guy. I'm paraphrasing, right? This, and it's all true. right? Okay, so that's a heck of a quote. But now it may be, and this is strange, that Jonathan Gray may be a pseudonym. That Jonathan Gray, not entirely anonymous, but that Jonathan Gray is the name that he uses in social media. But does Leslie know the identity of Jonathan Gray? Or am I just wrong altogether? And Jonathan Gray is his real name. And I would assume that Jonathan Gray, especially spelled Grey, and the way that it's in the article, that we can chase this guy down in his military records. And I haven't seen that happen yet. So why would Leslie and Ralph use a pseudonym with such an important quote? She's got her own reasons. Maybe she's got a personal relationship with this general that goes back decades. We all know she's been visiting countries in Central and South and North America and all of the militaries and covering all angles of the UFO subject, specifically pointing at national militaries. Maybe she's got a relationship with this guy and she's protecting him. I don't know.
Those are the big questions, Jimmy, the $1 million questions. Out of everyone that has come forward, the names, the images, their credentials that have come forward, you have this one anonymous person, Jonathan Gray. We know nothing about him. We are aware that is the pseudonym. We don't have an image, obviously, right? And so, like, I think just that little aspect right there, while this person was providing incredible quotes, I mean, like, wow, big things, for there not to be a face for this particular article, yes, it's devastating. But when it comes to the past and it comes to the UFO conversation, there have been a handful of pseudonyms that have come forward, right? Anonymous people that have said a few things, but they were never placed forward. There were a lot of books. A good example of this was Gary Nolan just a few years back. He just recently came forward stating, yes, I was that person in those previous books, in those previous articles, using a different name. He's a great example. Could this be the same with Jonathan Gray? Will this person come forward at some point if maybe he's promised better protection, if he's given permission to come forward? Because we need to ask that as well. Why now? For instance, was David Grusch given the nudge saying, okay, now it's your time to shine. Now you are ready to go forward, right? And so we need to ask this as well. But when we're looking at this anonymous person, Jonathan Gray here, will he or she be given the nudge and saying, okay, now you can come forward with your real name. You will be protected. You might be harassed on social media, but aside from that, you're going to be A-okay.
Yeah, and the exception to this is Jonathan Gray isn't completely anonymous. And so let me explain why. Here's the direct line from the debrief. It says, Jonathan Gray is a generational officer in the United States intelligence community with top secret clearance who currently works for the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, NASIC, where the analysis of UAP has been his focus. Previously, he had experience serving private aerospace Department of Defense Special Directive task forces. And this is the quote: the non-human intelligence phenomenon is real. We are not alone. Retrievals of this kind are not limited to the United States. This is a global phenomenon, and yet a global solution continues to elude us. Now, not only do we have that, right? That's what I say. It's not completely anonymous because they mention NASIC, where he currently works, and so forth. Then we have this, and we have his photograph. Carl E. Nell, right? It says, a recently retired Army colonel and current aerospace executive who was the Army's liaison for the UAP task force from 2021 to 2022 and worked with Grusch, characterizes Grusch as beyond reproach. So it's not, we when we're looking at this, we have to not only objectively, but we have to use a serious amount of discernment, and we have to look through this with 3D eyes. We have to. But when we have these sources attributed and laid out, I think that Leslie and Ralph and the debrief and Tim McMillan and the staff over at the debrief handled this the right way. That's why I think that most of the media right now, Cristina, is taking this as truth, right? They're not looking. They're like, okay, this seems to be facts. Now we need to go and get the answers. But right now, this is fact based. This isn't. I don't want to say anything too. This isn't little green men from Mars. Okay, that's not what this story is. The story that just broke in Las Vegas, I saw everybody's comments about this. A family says that something crashed in the backyard. They went out, and what did they see? Did you see the article? They said that they saw an 8 to 10 foot, not one, but two, alien beings with big eyes staring back at them. The police officers have their body cam footage. Something flashes in the background. Now, there's no body cam footage of 10-foot ETs in the backyard. This happened on April 20th. Guess who broke the story?
Who?
George Knapp. So now the 911, the tapes, those are real. The police officers that went out there, it's real. The body cam footage is real. The family standing out in the front yard, they have said what they said. Happened in Las Vegas. It happened on April 20th. Here we are on June. What's the date today?
June
8th. Today's June 8th. So that happened 6 weeks ago in Las Vegas. The story is just breaking now. Kind of funny that the story didn't break on April 21st when it should have after it happened.
Right. Everything is coming together, one thing after another, like a domino effect.
Yep.
And it makes myself question who is really in control with all of these news items, because it's no longer news outlets. Anyone can release this information now. Okay. I mean, for instance, the debrief. Okay. They're ones that released this article before any of the mainstream news outlets. But the question is, who is really, really in control, dropping things and knowing when to drop them? But so many more people, because of this article, ever since 2017, people are asking the big questions. People are becoming more curious than ever when it comes to this conversation. And on top of that, the biggest aspect to this is the government is coming forward, talking about Arrow, talking about the UAPTF, talking about ATIP, right? Releasing videos that we've seen 1,000+ times. We're not going to get into that today. And then also getting these hearings, also getting this whistleblower protection as well. All of these different aspects are coming, in my opinion, which I love, a little bit too fast compared to the 70+ years where it's been pretty stagnant. But I'm pumped that in the last few days, I have heard from so many people in my generation asking the questions, because I want my generation to get involved. I want to have this debate, this discussion with people my age, because they are the future lawyers, scientists, teachers, so on and so forth. And if they're knowledgeable in these topics, we're going to have a brighter future when it comes to this conversation. So I was really intrigued to receive text messages to go onto campus, people saying, "Cristina, hold up. You need to explain this to me." And I said, "Sit down, buddy. We're going to have a chat here." But it's we live in such an incredible time period, Jimmy. Now more so than ever before, and this is incredibly exciting. And Android, thank you so much again. It says Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor worked with Grusch on UAPTF for UAP task force, right? If so, they need to back up his credibility too. It'll give another media boost. Okay, this is really interesting.
Great point.
It is.
Great point. That's what I love about your audience, Cristina. Smart. Just smart. They ask the right questions, and yes, it's a circle, when you are in a circle. I know all the other radio hosts, right? I know most of the people in the UFO community. I know them. It's a small community. It's thousands big, but I know, we all know each other. And if somebody wants to ask somebody about me, you can do it. If somebody asks me about somebody else, I can do that. And it's the same thing here. Jay Stratton, right? And others like this Nell guy and this Jonathan Gray. Wasn't Jonathan Gray? Didn't he write? Oh, that was 50 Shades of Gray. That was something else. But the point to all of this is that when we look back historically and we start to put these pieces together, we always go back and talk about December of 2017, right? In the New York Times. I am so happy for Tim McMillan, Christopher, Micah Hanks, everybody over at the Debrief, because from now on, we are going to mention the article in the Debrief that was broken back in 2023. I'm so happy for those guys and gals. I'm just so happy. I've known Micah, I want to say since we were kids, but it's kind of true. I've known him for a long, long time. And the idea for the Debrief and to put that together, it's a lot of work. But here's the thing. We all want the opportunity to change history, to make history, and to write about something and cover something that makes a difference, right? And they have done that. Micah I have no idea what Micah's phone is like right now. I have no idea.
I haven't even tried contacting him because I know how crazy it is.
And we talk all the time. We do. Oh. And Leslie and Ralph, all of them. I thought about calling and getting them on the show, but my show's already booked. Number one, that's the first thing. Second,
they're absolutely swamped. And when it comes to the Debrief, I used to work for them as well. I mean, they're great. They're so dedicated. Mike is also a regular guest host on this channel as well. Mm-hmm. They're an amazing team. And I'm so happy. I truly am so happy that they were the first to break this story, to even have that, to even be given that opportunity, because they're grassroots journalism. That's what they are. And many people, when they first came across the article, they're like, the Debrief? Who's that? And now everyone's saying, oh my gosh, the Debrief. I've been following them for years, right? As it usually is. But back to David here. What else I would kind of like to mention is, when it comes to him coming forward at this time frame, people are saying, oh, it's all hearsay. Everything that he's saying, it's not significant. It has no purpose. Why are we even talking about him? He, once again, and I'm going to say this 1,000 more times because I think it's very, very important, he is setting the foundation for more people to come forward. And while he didn't actually see a craft, at least to our knowledge, right? While he didn't come across entities directly, he's really unveiling, in a sense, classified information, but in a way without him getting his personal hands dirty. He's saying, well, other people told me this, but those other people, if that information is true, is a really big deal that information has even been made public. And for Dopster to come forward and say, yep, it's not breaching any NDAs, it's not breaching anything classified, you're good to go. But I have to repeat this again. That is not saying that they are practically saying, well, what David is saying is absolutely true. That's not what's going on. They're just looking at...
They can't do that, Cristina. If they came out and went after him and said, you can't say that we have crashed alien crafts, they can't say that. No way. They cannot.
No, but those people might come forward next, the ones that told David their stories.
You understand what I'm saying? They cannot say that. By taking that position, by saying you cannot tell everybody that we have alien bodies, by doing that, then it absolutely is 100% fact. They've now admitted to it. So right now they can't. What is going to happen is Congress and the Senate and the White House are now forced into going and getting these answers on two things: flying saucers and alien bodies. That's what David Grusch has done. And I can't be any more. Well, what about the pictures? What about the videos? That's not what Grusch is about here. Okay, Grusch did state very clearly that he saw the documents, he spoke to the people, and he knows that we have these craft. He knows that we have the pilots that piloted those craft, and he knows they did not come from planet Earth. He saw those documents. That's what he has said. Nothing more. All right. So he also said and sworn that he gave the IG the proof of this. Okay. Now, IG's got everything that they need. He says he's given it to Congress. Congress is now looking at this. Now we have the news. I just reported on this today. Yes, Congress is scheduling a hearing immediately. And not only that, let me read this to you, Cristina. Can you just stay right there for 2 seconds? The powerful House Oversight Committee is in the House Oversight Committee. That's the one you don't mess with. Is in the early stages of preparing a hearing on UFOs in the wake of claims of David Grusch. Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, was first and asked about this on News Nation, and I did see that. Last night, the Oversight Committee spokesperson Austin Hacker said, and I quote, "In addition to recent claims by David Grusch, reports continue to surface regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena. The House Oversight Committee is following these UAP reports as in the early stages of planning a hearing." Republican Representatives Anna Paulina Luna and Tim Burchett confirmed on Twitter today that they will lead the committee's investigation into UFOs, officially referred to as unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. There you go. That's where we are today. That's what Grusch has brought to the table. So let's two things. What are those two things?
Craft and alien bodies. But those people that David mentioned and others can definitely come forward and have the context. That foundation is laid. And what do you all think in the live chat? Is this, in your opinion, is this a game changer? And now, Jimmy, what if what David is saying and stating is true? What next? What do you think is next? And are we any closer to the official disclosure? I want to hear your thoughts on this, Jimmy, and those also in the live chat as well. And if you're watching this after the show, please put your comments down below. I do read all the comments, and hit the like button as well. Let's get to 400 likes before we end today's show. But Jimmy, and those in the live chat, again, what are your thoughts on this now that we have seen David come forward?
There are corporations. Okay, there are corporations and laboratories around this country that do a lot of creative engineering and inventing and things, right, that are scrambling today. I can guarantee they're looking at their staff, they're looking at employees, they're wondering who could potentially talk, who could walk, who could quit, who could write a book, who could go and sign a movie deal. I'm being very serious about this, and who has the knowledge of the location of this stuff. And that not only does this include flying saucers, but we're talking about the biology aspect of this too as well, and alien, DNA, parts, body, all of that too as well. It would be a huge, enormous cover up, but one that I think that has been in place since at least 1947. So those corporations right now, like Lockheed Skunk Works right up the street, you don't think that they're discussing, okay, we got to get that thing on a flatbed trailer. We got to get that thing out of here in the cover of darkness tonight, and we need to go bury it somewhere out in the middle of the desert. That these conversations are real. Because if, like you said, if we take all of this at face value, and I think that right now we don't have a reason not to when it comes to David Grusch's statements, that the locations of this stuff is exactly what Congress and the Senate and others in Washington, D.C., and up to the president wants to know. Right. And that's it. So who has got this information? And do these people get put on lockdown? Can I share something with you?
Go ahead.
Top secret. I'm in front of my house today. I don't know if this is related, but it sure the heck is funny. So my neighbor is walking by. I'm not going to say his name. And he goes, hey, Jimmy, what's going on? I said, hey, man, what's going on? Walked down and he goes, man, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? And he goes, they're gone. I said, who? And he goes, your neighbors. I'm not saying who. I'm not going to go there. I said, what do you mean? They left. What do you mean they left? They built that house. They left last night. You didn't see it? I said, what do you mean they left? They packed up and left in one night. I said, where'd they go? Don't know. I said, what? I was like, what? Yeah, that's all. I can't say. I'm not going to say anything else. But with everything, I know where they work. I know where I live. It's just like weird. And I didn't know a thing. And my neighbor goes, what kind of neighbor are you? How could they do that? I said, dude, I was working. I said, but how? He said, dude, it's a couple hours. Gone. Yeah.
That's some pretty speedy packing up, because that is, who likes packing anyways?
I didn't see or hear a thing.
And that's for the better.
I was on the air last night, but still, weird, huh?
Oh, without a doubt. And Cassidy, thank you so much for the super sticker. I do appreciate that. But Jimmy, we only have a few minutes left. What else would you like to mention in regards to the news that has just been recently dropped when it comes to David Grusch, or any connections that you've possibly seen since you've read the articles and have even had this conversation today?
I want to mention Lue Elizondo, if I can, for a minute. We've kind of touched upon him. Lue is Lue a whistleblower? Well,
he doesn't classify himself as one.
Well, and plus he quit. Right? He didn't get fired. There wasn't any retaliation. He wrote a letter and said, dude, I'm out of here. So there's that aspect of it. So in the legal definition, would he fall under those protection rights? Plus, he's gone and he's still a contractor for the government, and he's still doing his secret missions and doing his things. So there's that part of it. But I know that Lue took a lot of heat, and his family and his other things, and he's a very smart guy. But leading up to this UFO thing, he was in the black ops world, right? He was an unknown. He didn't want to be discovered. That was his job, right? He's a secret agent, right? That's what he did. And so to be thrust out into the public eye and then face all of this stuff, it was, I think it was pretty hard on Lue. So much so that I think that Lue, I did a movie with Lue, and he's been on Fade to Black I don't know how many times, and conversations and things. But I think that part of the public eye, you're either built for it or you're not. And I don't think Lue was necessarily built for it. And his name being out there and dealing with things like that at that level, he did it. Yes. If he had a choice to do it all over again, I'm not sure that he would have handled it differently. And so the lessons that that were learned about people that come out and do these kinds of things, the public can be harsh. Not only the UFO community, but the public in general. And if you have noticed, Lue's disappeared. Okay. There's a couple of tweets, once a month he'll pop in, happy Memorial Day, but that's about all you really get. I just, he's laying low. Is he writing his book? Is he making his movie? Well, we don't have these answers. But the lessons that we learned from how we treat somebody like this, and Lue is an example of that, is that David Grusch is now in that position. Okay, it's going to be it's going to be a tough road. It's going to be a tough road. So we know his background. We don't need to go and investigate and question and do all of that. I think that the best thing that we can do with David right now is just appreciate that he has said what he has said. He's gone on the record. He went to the IG. That's a big, big, big deal. He signed off on it and he swore to it. Now it's handed off to Washington. And we have a system that is in place with Congress and the Senate, the House of Representatives, and of course, the investigative arm of the IG, of the Department of Defense, and the intelligence community, and then, of course, the executive wing and the White House. And they would have the Supreme Court. So that is what I just want the community to understand. You don't have to believe Lue Elizondo. You don't have to believe David Grusch. You can believe them. That's totally onto you. But it's how being a whistleblower and stepping out on what may be into a minefield of the most sensitive subject in the history of this planet. Right? Are we alone in the universe? Are we being visited by a species, by a race from another planet? Right? That's it. That's it. There isn't anything bigger than that. So if you're going to walk out into that minefield, I think that we have to respect the individuals that are taking these chances. And we can go back to whistleblowers in the past, whether it's factory workers and protections and chemicals and radioactive workers' hours, whatever it may be, where you have gone and stepped out and blown the airplane safety, airline safety, automotive safety, whatever it is. Right? You are rolling the dice for yourself and your family, your well-being, your future, your income.
Yeah, and all of that. And Lue Elizondo, is taking a little break from media, from all the heat that he's gone through. Now, him and we do keep in touch, and he is very, very busy behind the scenes. He is in DC pretty often, but he has stepped back from the public stage to work harder, I think, on creating a better environment for whistleblowers and government transparency. And that's something that I can assure everyone on. Lue is working with elected officials in DC along with Chris Mellon. And that is, in my opinion, really, really important because Lue has known David Grusch for a long time. And from my understanding, there is more coming. So this roller coaster ride is just starting. And I'm very, very thankful that Lue Elizondo has not given up on this, has not quit. And he's busier than ever. And I think that with the people that he's in connection with, hopefully he can provide David Grusch with good advice when it comes to dealing with the public, because you're not going to please everyone, but you sure can make everyone upset in just one go. But making everyone happy in one go is pretty darn difficult. So I think that with what Lue Elizondo is doing and what Chris Mellon is doing, along with David Grusch, to my understanding, there is more to come. And all of us are on this pretty intense roller coaster ride.
Yeah, crazy days. I just like when TTSA formed, and a lot of these names are surfacing. Some are familiar, some are new. Lue obviously was a new name. When you see 400 is the number, by the way. I want to see 400, and we're almost there. I want to see 400 likes. Quit goofing around, okay? is that we need to collectively, as a community, do our own due diligence. We're a great police force. We police our own. We are able to go and do that. And so in this case, yeah, that's absolutely fine. Go and look and do the best that you can. Ask the right questions. What is really in play here? How people handle themselves moving forward in and out of this is all so very, very important. We need to really thank again Tim McMillan, the Debrief, and Leslie Kean and Ralph Bluementhal. They could have rested in 2017, never did anything else, right? And that's it. But they turn around and unravel this and put this together. Also, you got to say that Ross Colfart, wow, Ross again. Ross is constantly investigating. He's constantly moving pieces around. He's looking under rugs, and he doesn't quit. He asked David the right questions last year. It's a very telling interview, and it's amazing. And so there you go. Now there are others out there that aren't happy that they didn't get the scoop on this story. Ross, of course, we have Ross, we have Leslie, we have Tim McMillan, and we have Ralph Bluementhal and others that were all part of this and chose to do it. The last thing that I want to say before I say good night and good afternoon to everybody, and I'll see you tonight on Fade to Black, is that the Debrief, Tim is a very smart guy. And so editorially, you're going to, and Micah and everybody else, you're going to look at this. You're going to examine this. Of course, you know who has written this, but you have to go through but they are a streamlined organization, and they are willing to take chances where the Washington Post or the New York Times or the LA Times, what have you, you are dealing with banks of lawyers, attorneys, opinions, VPs, news directors, editors, and you've got to go through all of that. And you didn't have to do that with the Debrief. And the Debrief did it, and they were first. Now, they were first. They scooped everybody else out. Good for them. June 5th, 2023. Yeah, there you go. Cristina, thank you so much. Another great show. Thank you, everybody. Did we get to 395? 395.
5 more.
I'm going to say it again. 395. Everybody, quit playing around. 396. 396. We can go for another half hour, right, Cristina? We can go all the way up to Fade to Black tonight if we don't get three. I see 396. Quit playing around.
And for those that
397. 397, 400. Okay, everybody have a great night tonight on Fade to Black. I've got John Greenwald. We're going to continue the discussion. Thank you so much, Cristina. Another wonderful show.
Thank you, Jimmy. This was a show that we absolutely had to cover today with no exceptions, no excuses. And I think that we did a pretty decent job going into depth and creating and making some comparisons as well with other people from the past. Out of all the things that we mentioned today, what aspect was your favorite? And the questions that I asked earlier, please reply to them in the comment section. What does this mean now for disclosure? Does this mean anything? Is this a game changer when it comes to David Grusch and him coming forward? Is he telling the truth? Is he lying? Is it a part of misinformation? What are your thoughts and your opinions when it comes to David Grusch and this conversation that we are having today? I would like to mention, and please perk your ears up because this is really important information. Strange News has been moved over to Sunday at 3 p.m. PST this week only. Okay. Last week we weren't able to do the drawing. There were some issues with the giveaway. So now we're looking at $60+ instead of the usual 10 plus. So you do not want to miss that show live. Again, that is Sunday at 3 p.m. PST. There is no show tomorrow. All right. Strange news. Sunday, 3 p.m. PST. Also, follow me on Twitter at eyes_on_the_skies for all of my updates and news. Bring this conversation over to the Discord server as well. Speak to 1,700 other like-minded members, sharing your thoughts, your opinions, your experiences, and more. I know that my amazing moderators have shared that link several times in the live chat. So if you want to continue this conversation, bring it over to Discord server. Also, if you are enjoying the content that you're seeing right here, first hit the like button before you head out. But also, if you are enjoying all the videos that are produced right here, and if you also enjoy Puck the Puck Wedgie as well, consider being a Patreon supporter. All the funding goes straight to the channel, to Puck for his ramen, and to the RV fund as well, where I'll be traveling the United States, hitting all the UFO and paranormal hotspots, documenting it, and taking you on the journey with me. That is it for today. I will see all of you on Sunday. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.